Okay, real quick before we get into this episode, I just wanted to explain what you are about to listen to. What happened is that we had our amazing friend Alethea Lamberson come join me and John Mark on this episode. And we kind of let loose and ended up talking for like 2 hours. So I think we're kind of past the days where I'll make you and expect you guys to listen to a 2-hour podcast. So what I've done for your listening ears is broken it up into 2 separate episodes. So what we have here is part 1 of what inadvertently ended up being a 2-part episode. So in this first part, I'll make it really easy. We give a lot of caveats before we start, but I'll just go ahead and do that now. We dive into Wakanda Forever, Black Panther 2, for those of you that haven't seen it or may never see it. That's what we did in this first episode. So it does include spoilers, like deep spoilers. It's like a whole thing of spoilers. We dive head on into this and dissect it and talk about all the feels, all the emotions that went into it and how we felt watching it, and what we thought about the whole movie. So if that's not your thing, or you don't want any spoilers and you haven't seen it yet and want to see it before you listen, I do highly recommend that. But go ahead and skip over this episode if that's you. Just wanted to get that all out of the way up front, which we also do on the recording as well. Also, there's some not as smooth transitions on the front end and back end, since we ended up splitting it into 2 separate episodes, not in real time. Just wanted to put that out there for you guys before you jump in. But now let's get into this conversation on Black Panther with Alethea Lamberson.
Life in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisted. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand the pressure.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Racially Speaking, where we have real and honest conversations about race that's viewed through the lenses of faith, family, and vocation. As always, I'm your host, David Phipps, and I'm joined once again by the social justice cowboy, John Mark Walker.
What's up, everyone?
What's going on,
What's
man?
Up? Happy to be here. Happy to be here as always. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well.
Yes, sir.
Excited to talk about the things we're going to talk about tonight.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And we're just going to hop right in. But first, John Mark, we are not alone. We're joined once again by Racially Speaking listener favorite, and I truly mean that. We're joined by the Alethea freaking Lamberson, all the way from the ATL. Lee, thank you for coming back.
That's quite the intro. Yes, thanks for having me back. I love being on the pod with y'all. So I recently got back behind the mic, so it's fun to get to interact with y'all, not be like having to plan and record all the things. So
yeah.
I know. So you're rolling out.
We're happy to have you. This is what is this, number 3 or 4?
3, I think.
It's at least 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We have you back on 2 more times. You get that 5-timers jacket. So.
Ooh. Okay. Bet.
Oh yeah, jacket better than a plaque.
Oh, for sure. For
jacket.
sure.
Yeah. I love
a good jacket.
We got a lot to get into. Lots been happening as always. Look, on the front end, I want to have a little bit of fun. Talk about some encouraging, life-giving things, I think, for all of us to kind of delve into. And then on the back end, get into some nitty-gritty, which I'll get to when we get there. So, listeners, buckle up. Just right here. Let's jump in. On the front end, I guess I should give some caveats. As we're recording this, it hasn't even been a week yet, listeners, but we're going to dive right into Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. So it came out last Friday, I guess technically Thursday. The 3 of us have seen it, plan to chat about it. But listeners, it'll be in the show notes of when this segment is over, so you can fast forward or come back later and listen. That's the beauty of podcasting and recording. So fair warning, complete full of spoilers. We're going to dive into this, dissect it.
All the spoilers. Listen at your own risk.
So listen at your own risk. You've been warned, so go ahead and fast forward to that next segment. Or if you don't plan to see it, enjoy listening.
Well, if you don't plan to see it, maybe you should just stop listening now, because I don't know how you're not going to go watch it.
Yeah, right.
Well,
right.
They might learn something. They might learn something.
That's true. So we're gonna jump right in here. So is that fair enough warning, guys?
Oh, that was perfect. Perfect. Spoiler
warning.
alert.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. Hate spoilers. So, I mean, I actually I didn't think I was going to be able to see it till right now we're recording, till tonight, actually. I thought we were going to have to see it tonight. So I was terrified because all weekend I was like, I think people, like humanity, will give us the weekend and I won't, no one's going to post spoilers. But I was like, come Monday, I just know if I touch my phone, I'm going to see stuff. So,
yeah, you can't count on humanity.
Right.
Very nice.
I don't know. I will say I saw it Sunday night. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't see one spoiler on Instagram or TikTok over the weekend, but come Monday, it was everywhere. So I will give people some props. People that did put stuff out there, they did say spoiler alert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Swipe if you don't want to hear. So
got to.
There is a tinge of hope in humanity.
Got to.
A little bit of patience.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's jump in. So first, right off the bat, initial thoughts. How do you guys think this held up as a sequel? Just initial thoughts.
When I think about sequels, you have some sequels that get made where it's like they don't even think about bringing back any of the original cast and it's super trash, right? And then you have some sequels that are made where they do bring back the original cast and their story continues to unfold. For me, Black Panther has a bit of a different feel with a sequel because the main lead isn't there and not by choice. Yeah. And so for me, it has a little bit of a different feel of a sequel because it's not to me, it wasn't a typical sequel. Because it's not like you just had to write Chadwick out, or write T'Challa out. Like he's actually not present to be in the role when a whole script was already written for him to be. And so I think from jump, for me, it felt different. You have an idea because of the first one, but it's like, it's going to feel so different because one of the main person is not there anymore. And so that for me was kind of initially going in, I had a lot of curiosity of like, I had heard, some of the interviews and whatnot, but like, how is this actually going to play out without Chadwick, So that's my initial thoughts going into the second one.
What about you, John Mark?
Yeah, I think it is a worthy sequel. But similarly to her, I don't know. I hesitate to call it a sequel because it really wasn't the continuation of Black Panther T'Challa's story, but it told Shuri's story of becoming Black Panther. So, it's a sequel, but it felt like just another installment of a Marvel origin story film. And I thought it was great. We returned, lots of characters came back. Nakia, Okoye, M'Baku, who I love. I think they did amazing. And so I feel like it was a natural flowing from the past story and incorporating in-game elements too. I thought it was great. What do you think, David?
Yeah, completely agree. I was going to follow up and ask you guys, were you guys moved to tears like right away at the beginning? Because first, I mean, I'll be honest, and I feel guilty. I think I have spent so much time listening to longer form like interviews over the years and tributes already to Black Panther, but more Chadwick Boseman, that I don't know, maybe I'd gotten a lot of that out of just kind of grieving his life and thinking and seeing the impact that he's had on so many people and, even outside, the MCU obviously, but just him as a person sounds like was an amazing, person to begin with. But I almost was like, I thought, one, I've listened to a lot of interviews and tributes already, but then two, I thought the previews have been so good that I felt like once the beginning happened, I was like, oh man, I wanted it to be longer, tribute and whatnot. But the end, which I know we'll get to, then that eventually moved me to, much more emotion. But I thought, I agree with you guys. I thought the movie was great. I thought they did a beautiful job with, combining it being essentially a tribute and memorial of T'Challa, Black Panther, and Chadwick. No real critiques or anything. So I thought it was great.
You asked, the beginning. I mean, I was prepared, I feel like I have, I've shed some tears over Chadwick. I think just as a person, the battle that he endured, which he chose to do, very close knit. You see the impact of that on all the cast members as they've talked about and all the interviews leading up to Black Panther. But I think for me, like to be able to actually now see it on screen and that opening scene, and then just the quiet, the Marvel logo, comes in like typical, and it's all Black Panther. And that for me, I mean, it just, Shuri, as they open up and then that, intro, I was already like, I have my own grief I'm navigating right now. And thanks to a Korean drama I watched recently, it helped me to acknowledge that I've been avoiding some grief. And so I think that part of it too was my own journey with grief presently that I maybe felt more open to, of like, I have some tears I need to shed, and it's not just about Chadwick, of where some of the tears are. So that it triggered some of what I feel like I even needed to release, which I did at the end. I sobbed at the end of the movie, like just boo-hooed. But I appreciated, I think how it starts at, again, that intro with the Marvel logo coming in, it just, and how quiet it was.
Silence.
Oh, it just, I think just so honoring.
That was amazing.
Of him as Black Panther, of him as a person. It just was so beautiful the way they did that. Ryan Coogler is phenomenal. I just give that man his flowers.
So that whole sequence, the Marvel intro, that's usually bright colors, music, all the characters, and it was just Chadwick Boseman, just Black Panther, T'Challa. I just kept saying, wow, 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 through all this silence. And my sister and my wife were watching with me, and they were both like, shh. Because it was like a moment of silence. And I was just so moved and impressed by the opening and the tribute to him that they even did just the whole logo for him. Yeah. I was just like, this is beautiful. This is amazing. I loved that part.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, there are a lot of major themes in this movie, and you brought up grief, and I think that first, it's probably like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's like an episode in itself of Shuri's intro, where she is like grieving her brother, and we hear that his heart is slowing down and stopping, and she's frantically trying to save him with her with all that she knows how to do, everything she can do, she's trying to save him by remaking that heart-shaped herb. And it just is failing and failing until her mother comes and gives her the news. I thought that Letitia Wright did a beautiful job of portraying grief in that moment. And it was like present, active, like sharp, painful grief of losing a loved one. She did an amazing job. And I feel like grief it carries on throughout the whole movie, like processing deaths of loved ones or hardships as a nation. I loved how they portrayed grief, and they didn't breeze past it or blow over it, but they really showed the processing of grief in this movie. So,
were there any specific scenes? Would either of you mind answering that really brought that? I know you guys mentioned the end, but you guys really identified with. I know both of you differently, but you guys have some grief in both of your lives that is a big part of your stories. So even watching this, were there parts of the film that really stuck out? Like, oh wow, all right, I feel seen.
Yeah, I mean, I felt it throughout. Honestly, I think the way that they humanize people, and they humanize grief, and they make it. You see the people's humanity in it, and you see the complexity of grief. And so I think for me, I resonated with that throughout the film of you have this significant loss and you don't know how to process it. You're trying to avoid it. Shuri's trying to avoid it. And then her mom's like, you know what? walk away from the very thing that you're burying your mind and soul into to distract yourself from grieving. And I'm going to take you away from the noise. Leave your beads too. Don't even bring those. We're going to go away. And I think about the times where I've had to do that, where I've had enough, I think, energy or awareness that I needed to do that. And then I've had people in my life do that too. And then, when her mom is killed by Namor, that hits a very sensitive spot for me. The way that she grieves her mom, and she's already in a really tender place where she hasn't really processed her brother's death. And now her mom is taken from her by someone she trusted. And when she says, like, my heart was buried with her, when M'Baku's engaging with her. And tomorrow is actually the 18-year anniversary of my mom passing away. And so, and my second mom passed away back in April. So it's just that event. Anytime there's a loss of a mom in a movie, it's already a sensitive, tender place for me. But I wasn't prepared for that. Like, I wasn't prepared for my own mom's passing. And then when the anger she felt, right, for her to run into Killmonger, right, when she thinks she's going to see her brother or her mom, and the rage that she was feeling, right, of like, I don't have any other way to respond. Like, I'm going to get vengeance. And I remember in a different way, like my thing was like, I'm so mad at God when my mom died. Like, I was, if God had been in the flesh in front of me, I would have just swung and kept swinging. Like, that's the depth of anger that I felt, that my mom was no longer present. And so I deeply, deeply resonated with that. And then the end where she finally is invited into a beautiful place by the water. I love being by the water. It's a way I really connect with God. And she's finally allowing herself to really reflect about her brother and let the tears fall. Yeah. I resonate with that too, because I've done that. Yeah. And so for me, I felt very deeply connected to the ways that grief is portrayed throughout the entire movie. And that's what I've been telling people too. I'm like, I don't have to give you spoilers. I can just tell you the way that grief is on display. And I think too, being a Black woman, watching Black women do that, both her mom and Shuri, and Nakia and Okoye, right? Like it's all throughout the film. And so for me, I felt so seen. I felt so connected to just from that in of itself. All the other stuff was great and I appreciated it, but that for me just carried a lot of significance. And I think it's also tied to my present season of grief that I'm currently navigating.
Yeah.
Wow. Appreciate you sharing all that, Leaf.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for sharing that. The scene that I think sticks out in my mind is when Ramonda. So it's when Okoye gets back without Shuri, right? And that is killing Okoye, right? Because her king died, and then her king died, and then she lost the princess, and then the queen takes away her leadership. She removes her from being one of the Dora Milaje, and you can see the heartbreak. That it's the thing she loves to do, and she lost it. She even turned on her husband to do this job, and she lost it, right? And so that is heartbreaking. And her story, she has a grief arc too, in becoming, I don't know what she's called with that blue suit on, the really cool Iron Man looking thing. But she has a grief story arc in there too. But when Ramonda removes her job, her title, and then says, I've lost my whole family, right? That really struck a chord with me. And so similarly to you, I lost my father going on 18 years ago. And that was the hardest grief in my life to that point. And I also grew angry with God, right? But also that's where God met me. And
same.
And right. And I began to realize that God also grieved when his son died, right? And so that really strengthened my faith. And then then I processed through grief with God instead of like against God, since then. And then more recently, about 7 years ago, our oldest son died. He lived for 7 hours. And so we processed through that grief together too. So the losing of family it's like my biggest fear, my worst nightmare. And I related well to Black Panther, the first one, when his dad died. Right. Yeah. Avengers, Civil War, and then he was coming off of that to the funeral in Black Panther, and so I related to that. And then this one, like when she said, "I lost my whole family," yeah, that was a powerful scene.
Yeah.
And then when she died, and it was really Shuri who lost her whole family. That's when it all dropped, and it's like, wow, she's alone. Yeah, that was powerful. Very, what is the word? Is it lethargic? Is that what I'm looking for? Cathartic.
Yeah.
Cathartic.
That's what it is. Not lethargic. That'd be slow. Yeah, cathartic.
That's good.
It was good. It was helpful processing. I think the pandemic, we're all grieving, right? We're all, there's this global pandemic that just happened. It's still kind of going on. There's a lot of loss. We're surrounded by death. And I think a movie like this is helpful in us collectively processing. If we let it, right? We've got to let those feelings come. And I think that is a sticking point sometimes. But yeah, this movie's good for grieving if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think one of my favorite scenes was for sure when, the Queen, like you guys said, was shouting, and just that exchange. I like when there's nuance and you're having to see both sides, but where she strips her of her job, and and then just says, "Have I not given everything?" And then the irony of her then dying is just so jarring, because then in retrospect it's like, now you have. And to have that paired with Shuri having to take on that weight of, she's the one that's given everything at that point, and just one thing after the other kept happening to her. I don't know if it's because I'm naturally a little more reserved, but I identified with how reserved, the Queen typically is, and then in that moment just lost it. So I can think of, very few times in my life, I keep it in, as many of us do, but the few times where it's just had to open up, whether it's through tears or anger or shouting, was just, I think in a way weirdly cathartic as well. As you said, John Mark, and identified with that feeling. I mean, and for me, luckily, I haven't lost a parent or child personally, but beyond a miscarriage. But this past year, which is very, very different. But Caitlin and I, my wife, had a series of several miscarriages. They're kind of all back to back to back. And, that journey is different for everybody. Loss is different for everybody. I just identified with how, like, it felt like one after the other kept happening, and they're always unexpected. But I have 2 children already, and we were really blessed to have, essentially 0 complications along the way. And so it felt even more, as you mentioned, John Mark, coming off something like a pandemic and other stuff that I know 3 of us can even identify navigating. It just felt like grief on top of grief on top of grief. And then when it seems like there was light at the end of the tunnel, miscarriage. So I identified a little bit with just the, like, almost panting and then just letting the floodgates open with, emotion. So all that to say, I felt like they really did that in such a relatable way, tackling grief, loss, mourning. No perfect way to do it, but I felt like they did a really, really good job with all that.
And I think that's the beauty of it. Like, there isn't a perfect way to grieve. I think people have an expectation. Yeah. My family's navigating this right now. And so I've been trying, as I've been in my own journey for 18 years now, and there's been a lot of loss in those 18 years, not just with my mom dying. I'm trying to help some people in my family who want to be grief avoidant. And they're like, well, I should be wherever, some imaginary place they think they should be in their journey. And I say, no, that's not how this works. Grief is not this linear process of, oh, I cried, I was sad, I was angry, now I'm happy. Now, like, it's all mixed and intertwined. And really what gets you in grief is sometimes you think you're doing okay. And then it takes you could have some random memory. You could be watching some random TV show, and it will trigger your grief. And so that's one of the things I appreciate. Again, so many that I appreciate about Wakanda Forever, but the way they portray grief in the face of immense loss over and over and over, you see that it's not this perfect thing. It's not something that you can put a bow on and feel really good about. It's so complex, and there's all these realities that they're also navigating. The queen has lost her husband and her son, and now she's having to lead her nation. And you have people calling on Wakanda, like, well, you guys aren't holding up your end of the bargain, and we're going to try to send in spies to steal vibranium. And then they're like, yeah, we're actually still smarter than you, so we know that you're coming. We're prepared. But like, she's having to lead a nation, and they're trying to figure out what are we going to do while she's got all this grief, and she sees her daughter is not grieving either. So she's trying to help her daughter do that, and she's trying to lead. And so you see that she's able to hold the space of like, Okoye, I hear you. I see what you did. I'm not going to ignore that, but let me paint a picture for you of here's all the things I've been holding. Have I not given everything before she dies?
And at that moment, she had lost Shuri for all she knew.
Yes.
For all she knew. Exactly. You know,
and so,
so there's that complexity of you're in this position. Again, I think there's the layers of being a Black woman and this expectation, like you just show up and keep doing what you do. And so she's like, hey, I gotta lead a nation, but like I have lost my children and my husband, and there's all this pressure and I need to grieve and all these decisions you got to make. And so there's just so much depth. Like John Mark, like you said, if people are willing to be open to engaging loss and grief, I really think the film can be super helpful in what they've laid out, because they've had to walk through it themselves, right? Yeah. Like Chadwick, Ryan Coogler wrote a whole script where Chadwick was the central point, and then he's gone, and they didn't even know about what he was battling. And then now it's like, hey, now we're going to go film a movie without him.
Right.
So everybody,
all of the cast had to grieve Chadwick's death. And if you watch interviews, they talk about it.
Yep. I mean, it's strongly considered not doing it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the beauty of it, is it's not this, they've been living it. And so there's part of a lived experience, and then their ability from a creative standpoint as actors, directors, writers to put it into film and still have humor and still have action and still like that's all still present. You know, it's not void of those things. It's all together. And I think, again, that's grief. That's the journey of grief. Everything's still happening. Right. So you can be laughing and have joy.
Still working.
You see beauty in things. And then, hey, you're avoiding this really painful place that I think you need to engage. So anyways, I feel like I go on and on about it because it just,
it's great.
It's all incredible. It's all mixed up in there together in life. Yeah. And so Kendrick Lamar's album has got that one song on it, and it says everybody grieves different. It's not that profound, but you know, his work is, but it's just true. Like everybody grieves different. Right. So you have to, at some point, you have to figure out what you need to do. You're the people that love you can watch you and make sure you take care of yourself. But everybody grieves different. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. This is great. Let's move into a little bit more of the characters. So to me, I think they are, with Black Panther and then Wakanda Forever, I think they're 2 for 2 for me with villains. I think the villains have been fantastic characters. Obviously Killmonger. We talk about him some, but this movie introduced Namor. Yeah. What do you guys think about him as a character, what he represented? I don't know. Did you like how him and his people were portrayed and what they represented?
Go ahead, John Mark.
Yeah. I loved that they brought in, would you? I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what to call it. So indigenous, yes. Hispanic also? Would that be appropriate? I don't know. Like, I'm curious because
it may or may not be.
Right. Yeah. Because it seemed like it happened before Spaniards got there. I don't know. I think they identify with Hispanic culture, but indigenous people for sure.
Right.
I thought Namor is a compelling character. I thought that what drives him, protecting his people, is natural for what he had gone through and witnessed when he came up on shore to bury his mother on land, and he saw conquerors whipping and beating people And then he went crazy on him as a kid. Like that was wild.
Yeah.
We didn't see it. They didn't show it, but they showed the after effect. Like that shaped him to be this ruler who just wanted to protect his people so they could prosper. And that's good. That's fine. That's good. He doesn't have to engage with anybody in all throughout the world. So it's really similar to, the first movie where Wakanda is the same way, but they're above ground and they're aware of everything going on. Namor's people, Atlantis is under the sea. Nobody is aware, they don't know what's going on. So yeah, he's a compelling character for those reasons.
What'd you guys make of the end? Or not the end, but how it left off with Shuri and Namor talking, the essential peacemaking they went through, but then you have Namor talking to, I don't know the character's name, the female character of his people, saying essentially, well, I'm just doing this until they need us. What'd you make of that conversation? I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's true, but I love what he led with was like, she could have killed me and she didn't. And so even to share that with, his kind of like right hand, in some ways. And she was like, I was ready to fight with you till the death, and for him to say, I didn't just like give in, or whatever, however she was portraying it. Like it was this very simplistic thing that he did and he was weak because of it. It was, no, she could have killed me and she showed me mercy. And I want to acknowledge that. And there's going to be a time where they're going to need us and we might need them too. So I think, again, it's a very short scene in that, but I don't know, for me, I appreciated that he didn't just make it well, I just did that because of it was like, no, I'm going to acknowledge what she did first. Cause I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be leading you because she could have just killed me and left me on the land. So yeah, I think I was okay with that. And I think I just agree. John Mark he is a compelling character. And again, I think we talk about grief. We didn't really talk about Namor yet, but his people, it's this grief, right? Like people invade, they get diseased. And so they take this, medicine, so to say. And now it's like, now you got to live in the ocean. So you have to give up your land because of that. And you're underwater. Now I come out to bury my mom and I see all this evil in front of me. And so it's his unprocessed grief. It's this act of like rage, like, okay, well, we're going to do something. And again, the deep desire of, I just want to protect my people. So, hey, Wakanda, they're coming for some vibranium. I know y'all didn't know it was there. I'm telling you it's there, right? All your tales are wrong. Like it's there, but just help us. Like, that's all I want to do. I'm not trying to do nothing else. Just help us. And then when you don't, I have to respond because my motive is I need to protect my people. Right. And so let me take out the other most powerful group and say, hey, you're going to help us one way or another, right? But again, I think what also comes out in Namor's story and his character is there is this layer of things that haven't been processed, I think, for him and the pain that he's in. And so then his motives become misguided when his intention is, I just want to protect my people. Yeah. But then what you do is you attack the very nation that can help you because they didn't do what you wanted them to do. And in the process, your mom has died. Now you take out very intentionally Shuri's mom. Right. It's a little messed up, but again, I think it is. You see that there's the humanity in that too, though. Of this is what happens. This is the type of place we can get to if we don't kind of investigate our motives. If we don't deal with our pain and our grief in a significant way, it's going to come out in some way, shape, or form. I think that's the part that people get deceived by when we experience something very painful and we hold a lot of grief. It's going to come out in some way, and I think we see that in his character. It's coming out very misguided and very wrong at times. And so again, I think I see his humanity in that at the same time. So
I agree. And I think, anger is one of the stages of grief, right? And I also feel like there's some immaturity there that he
oh, for sure.
He grew up ruling a nation, right? As like a kid, quote unquote, God, right? So Like, who's going to tell him what to do? You know, so who's going to help him process the death of his mom, right? And so he only has one trick, which is like threaten violence, right? Yeah. so it's a very immature thing. How about having a conversation? How about we sit down and think through how we can keep the scientist alive, because she's a person, and also protect both of our nations from the nations of the world, right? And he just couldn't sit at the table and do that with Queen Ramonda. And so he portrays anger. And then I think it was really interesting, really profound how Shuri's character, after the death of her mom, went down his trail, like followed him into that. Obviously, she's going to want to go after him. He just killed her mom, right? So
I was like, go ahead, girl. Do what you got to do.
Justice, right? I mean, we need some justice for what just happened. He thought he was getting justice for the death of his people, right? And yeah, technically the queen did send in the spy. You know, she's the one who's responsible. But an eye for an eye, right? Everyone's blind, right? So Shuri took her people on that ship to go and fight them, and they were doing a pretty good job, right? And she was working out her plan, but so many of her people were dying as a result, right? And she even took in the teenage girl onto a battlefield. Like, she's not thinking straight, right? And M'Baku's not stopping her. Nobody can stop her, right? So I loved how they showed like vengeance, how they portrayed vengeance, and then forgiveness. I don't know if it's forgiveness though, but like peace. Right, there's one level of forgiveness that's like, I will lay it down. We can move forward together. And then there's another level where it's just, we're going to have peace for the sake of the greater good. And I feel like that's where she is. She can't be his friend. He killed her mom, right? But she's also not going to take her country to war, because that'll end up in a lot of death, which is when she got that vision of all that had happened, it was her people that were dying. And she said, it's not worth it. Let's go stop this thing. So, yeah, I thought that was beautifully done.
Agree.
Yeah.
So I think coming into the film, we knew, I mean, one big thing is that this was for sure going to be a empowering film for Black women. Leith, did you feel like it did justice towards that based on your expectations leading into it?
Oh, I think it kind of exceeded expectations, honestly. Maybe partly because I watched some interviews and I watched the trailer and things like that. But again, I think to see it like play out, it's one thing to like hear them talk about it and see a snippet. It's another thing to watch it for 2 hours and 40 minutes. And I think the way that, and always like Black women are centered in all of our complexity and our beauty and our fierceness and our leadership. I really appreciated, again, the varying ways that was displayed and acknowledged and honored, and the beauty and the pain. And so I think you see throughout the film, like, Black women, we're not a monolith, right? Like, we cry and we feel pain and we grieve and we can express our grief in a really intense way, and be honest about that, and also be badass and lead and, in the process. So all I'd say, I really feel like it, for me, exceeded any expectations I had. And I really appreciated the way that Black women were portrayed throughout the film, and the way they really own their spot in so many different ways too. So yeah, it was good for me.
Awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
Love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, last thing on this. At the end, the, I guess, less serious part, because obviously we discussed how they left off with Shuri grieving and continuing to memorialize Chadwick Boseman and T'Challa. But what the heck happened at the end with M'Baku? So, like, is he
M'Baku?
M'Baku? Yeah, is he the king now? And Shuri's Black Panther. Is she not the And then he's the king. Of course, the revealing of T'Challa's son. So, like, what's happening?
Yeah,
I'm confused. I don't know, but I was like, what's M'Baku doing? Like, why is he he's been good through this whole film.
He was good.
Like, I thought he was just, could he just be joking? I
love his character arc too, his redemptive story, right?
Yes,
where he was like, he came in as kind of like this rude bad guy.
Yep.
Then T'Challa, like, that whatever their relationship was made him a better guy.
Yep.
And then, I mean, through the other films, we saw him fight alongside of Avengers, and now he's like the advisor to Shuri, right? So, and then he comes off and he's about to be king. Like, I love that. I love Winston Duke's portrayal of M'Baku. So,
so is that?
Yeah,
So that's what happened.
I'm excited for
I
it.
didn't know if it almost felt like, is he just joking around? I don't know.
No, I think he's serious.
I think
he
he's
really,
serious.
He's like, yeah, we
gonna
got the
be
Black
king.
Panther, but I want to challenge for the throne, which I don't. I mean, I don't know the comics and all that stuff too. I'm just going off the movies, right? Like, I don't know if he knows that T'Challa had a son, right? Not that he's going to be king at 6 years old.
I mean, is he going to fight a 6-year-old? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but that play obviously is going to play into it in some way, right?
It is,
I think for me, I was like, I wasn't prepared for that because I was like, oh, it's going to be Shuri, you know? It's like, oh, yay. And then here comes M'Baku, and I'm like, what the heck is he doing?
Yeah.
So I think he's very serious. And I don't know.
Is he going to be embraced by the people?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because he was already like leading so well. I think there's peace. I think Wakanda wasn't united, and we saw that in the first movie. Sure. And now that they are out in the world, they're united as Wakanda. And I think by having him, the leader of that one tribe that was outcast from the other ones, coming in and being embraced and being the ruler, I really love how they did that. And also, like, if you think back to what was it? It was like the first movie, right? The king was not Black Panther. Like, those two mantles are different, right?
Yeah.
And so once again, we have a king, and then we have Black Panther, and they're different people.
Yep.
So I thought that was pretty cool how they do that too. Yeah, because I don't think if they had the hardship, I don't think Ramonda would have taken it. I think it always would have been Shuri. So yeah.
I'm just curious when he says, I want to challenge for the throne.
Right.
Yeah. Who's he challenging?
Nobody. Because he already knew that Shuri wasn't there.
Yeah, he knew Shuri is not going to be there. Nobody else is going to challenge him. So he's got it. So I'm excited to see where that goes too.
It's going to be interesting.
I really want to see, like, if you go back to the beginning of the movie, where Queen Ramonda is at the UN and she's talking to America and France tried to invade and get the what's it called?
Vibranium.
Vibranium, right? Like, the Western world is going after that. And that is a conflict that is still out there. And I'm like, is Ryan Coogler, is he really going to make a movie where, like, Atlantis and Wakanda fight America and France? And, like, you know what I mean? Like,
we can only hope.
That is not going to get greenlit. There's no chance. So I'm really curious where he's going with that. That, colonization, that invasion and usurping and infiltrating. Like, where's he going? Is there going to be another, like, Western nation that rises up to be the bad guy? Because where's he going to go with that? I'm so curious.
That's a good point.
I mean, I'd love to see that movie.
Oh, I would too.
Oh, absolutely.
I still love America. Like, don't get me wrong, but I'd love to see that movie.
Yeah. It's cool, but we got some.
I cheer for Wakanda. So, I would cheer for Wakanda.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
Nuance.
Come and save us. I mean, take us out. I mean, save us. Yeah.
I'd watch anything Ryan Coogler put out.
I know.
Facts.
Yes,
for real.
Absolutely. All right, we did it. We covered it.
Woo.
Good. So much more
stuff
to talk about, but
yeah, absolutely.
This is a good point. We can move on.
All right, we'll take a quick break and come back with the next part.
The nightmare might scare you, no worse than reality. They hunt you by day, R.I.P. Ahmaud Arbery. Everybody got a time, but that's less than comforting. I hope I'm alive by the time they choose to comfort me. Mosquitoes in the vein, or leeches on my soul. This money on my mind is a fracture in my bones. You get crippled by continuing existence like a ghost. And they wonder why we drink, and they wonder why we smoke, and they wonder why we think that everything's a joke. I'm shocked that we can sleep, must be the thought of letting go.